Hi, good evening and welcome to Restore 20. This is Fora's 5-day extravaganza for the mind, body and soul. And I'm Ruth Cooper-Dickson. I'm a positive psychology practitioner and accredited coach. And I am here today at Fora in Spitalfields at the Folgate site, which is actually, I don't know if I'm supposed to say that I've got a favourite site, but this is definitely one of my favourites. Although I am at Soho Radio at the Fora space tomorrow, so I should probably say they're both my favourite spaces. Tonight we're going to be talking about authenticity in wellness, which is such a broad topic, and there's lots of ways we can go with this talk. And I'm delightfully joined by the wonderful Toral, Shah and Ban Haas. And I will get them to introduce themselves shortly, but first of all, I just want to talk a little bit about Fora Space, and the reason why this is really important to me is that throughout lockdown, it's been great that Champs has been able to partner with Fora. For me, as a business for the last couple of years, Fora have really looked into how to make workspaces in a place where people can be productive, where people can be healthy and happy, but more importantly, bring that creativity and innovation to life. So that is for me why I think this is a great venue to have this conversation as well, and the work that we've done this year, particularly around understanding positive psychology principles, which authenticity is a big part of that. So why is being authentic so important? And the wellness industry is actually worth 4.5 trillion. That's 4.5 trillion. I didn't even know that was actually a real number at all, US dollars. And for me, from an academic perspective, when I think about authenticity, I refer back to a professor who I've spent a lot of time studying, who's a trauma expert, and he talks about authenticity as this particular formula. And he talks about it as authenticity and authentic living is knowing yourself, it's owning yourself and being yourself. So knowing yourself, owning yourself and being yourself. So they seem like really, I guess, straightforward ways to apply an authentic formula to your life, but actually much more difficult when we think about all the societal pressures on us and also who we are as individuals to even get to that place of being authentic and what that actually means. When we look at wellness as well, it's just by the fact that it is worth $4.5 trillion gives you an idea of the extent of the monetary value behind that in terms of the spend, both as individuals, as companies, and the fact that there is, a high net worth value associated to looking at wellness. And when we think about wellness itself, it was actually founded very much in East and Western principles when we look back to India and China and Greece and Rome. And yet we seem to have moved very much where we look at a lot of what we see coming from the UK, Europe and the US markets. So we kind of is really my question as well, some of that stuff around the ancestral origins of wellness, what it actually means to be well, and in particular when it comes to Fora, mind, body and how those all link up. So as I said, I'm joined by two experts who are fantastic in their own field to help me answer this deep question, which we're going to explore in the next hour. And I would love for you to send in your comments or your questions as we go through the talk. I'm leaving a little bit of time at the end for questions, but if you do have anything or something you want to shout about, I can see them on the screen, so I will make sure your questions get asked to my wonderful panel. So first of all, let's hear from Toral. Toral, would you just like to introduce yourself to the people who are listening online?
I'm Toral. I'm a nutritional scientist, a functional medicine practitioner, and the co-founder of a brand called What the Health Events, where we talk about health and wellness in a 360 approach. And our last in real life event was at Fora. Clearly, there are no in real life events at the moment. Everything's online. But I'm super passionate about kind of looking at health inequalities too, and how that impacts our health overall. Because actually, it's not just about what you eat and how you exercise. It's really about looking at what the environment is around, or the socioeconomic aspects and all of those things. So looking at public health in a bigger context.
Okay, thank you. And Ban, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Ban. I'm a personal trainer and fitness instructor. I have been doing this for about 6 years now. And I work predominantly with female clients, and that's about it.
Okay, and for me, the reason I asked both of you to be here as well, not only from your own experts' opinions and knowledge and background that you have in your fields, but also the fact you are both, you know, I use the word activist, but in terms of what you put out on social media, and that's obviously how I connected with both of you as well, which for lots of people is a way they understand and measure wellness or take, you know, knowledge about wellness. It's people's go-to route quite often. So first of all, my first question, I'm going to go in really deep, straight off. This is a big one. So what does it mean to be authentic? And actually, let's just start with that. What does it mean to be authentic, Toral? What's your view?
So for me, it's really truly being yourself in face of whatever else is going on around you and whatever your environment is. And I think that we have so much societal pressure that so many of us are not authentic most of the time because we're conforming to what potentially society, particularly as women, we conform to what patriarchy wants us to be too. So for me, I think there's so many facets of authenticity, but if we look from a personal development perspective, authenticity is really trying to get to the root of who you are.
Okay, so we're talking about societal issues, trying to get to the root of who you are, which, as I said at the start, can be, you know, you've got this formula, but actually it's bloody hard work to get there. Some people never probably get there as well, to understand what that is. Ban, what would you add to that?
In terms of
what does it mean to be authentic? So for you, what does it mean to
without being online, just being authentic?
Yeah,
generally?
just being authentic generally.
I would say, so with the topic of authenticity, I think there's a lot of things in my life that I don't feel so comfortable with. But then if you take something like authenticity, I'm like, yeah, that thing I can do. It's something that I'm particularly comfortable with because it's just you own it, and you kind of just don't give a fuck what other people think whilst staying true to your own morals and values. So it's not just a case of I'm just going to do whatever I need to do and ruin whoever I need to in the process.
Yeah.
But it's actually just staying true to yourself. So if you are a dickhead, stay true to yourself and continue being a dickhead. But if you're preaching something, and this is where the wellness industry we can talk about.
Yeah.
If you're, for example, preaching health or preaching wellness, you really can't do that without talking about other things that we'll probably talk about later on today.
Yeah.
Well, none of it is just one thing. It's all intersectional, isn't it? You know, when
Yeah.
you look at health, whether it's physical and mental health as opposed to mental and social health, or, you know, even just like racism or, you know, the environment, it all intersects.
And the fact that you've just mentioned that now, Toral, I mean, I know I've seen and I've heard you use the World Health Organization's definition of health. So I know you know it well.
The World Health Organization definition of health is full physical, mental and social health, and not merely the absence of disease. And actually they use the word sustainable in there, which sometimes and sometimes they don't. But I do think it has to be sustainable for your physical, mental and social health. And I think social health is something that we neglect, but it's become so important whilst we've been potentially in lockdown as well, because social health is our social environment, the people around us, our friends, our family, how we interact with people at work. And actually, if we take that away, which we had to for so many people, including myself, during this crazy 2020, then that's affected a lot of people's health. And actually, if you listen to Dr. Vivek Murthy, who used to be the ex-US General Surgeon General before Trump, obviously, and he talks about loneliness as being a pandemic. And it's something that we don't talk about yet. People all around the world are lonely, and we're not authentic about loneliness being a feeling or emotion or even a state of mind. And that's, you know, where it all kind of fits together.
So thinking about that, I mean, that's, yeah, the loneliness piece is really interesting. I think it's an emotion, again, when you're talking about being authentic, whether that's online or, you know, if you're telling people, you know, how you're expressing your values, how you're expressing your feelings and your emotions, and being authentic to those as well, and being able to share those with our nearest and dearest. And like you say, with the social aspect removed, we've lost a big part of that as well. With the wellness industry then particularly, I know this is just going to be the big one, but in terms of wellness, let's just start talking off about the wellness industry and the fact that it's worth so much for a start, you know, which is a ridiculous amount. I mean, I didn't even know $1 trillion existed. Mm-hmm. So clearly there's people paying for that. You know, businesses are being formed around this sector and industry. And I guess when we talk about wellness, that is quite a broad spectrum from, medical professionals, nutritionists, personal trainers to, you know, brands, all of that space. What does it mean then to be authentic in the wellness industry if you are an individual? So if you're a professional in that field, either of you?
For me,
yeah,
it's about really taking a look at if we're going to talk about it online, what it means to be authentic online, you would take a look at your content and you'd really, really have to ask yourself, is what I'm posting with the intention of making someone feel better? Is it to raise awareness? Or what is my intention? Or am I posting something which could make someone feel insecure, which is going to then lead to profit for the wellness industry? A lot of the time we see a lot of content from wellness influencers where they might argue that this is making someone else, this is helping, this is inspiring, this is motivating. And you've got to ask yourself, is that genuinely motivating, inspiring, or is it motivating someone to hate themselves enough to buy into your product? Are they buying into a program, a guide, the makeup product you are endorsing because if they buy that, they will look like you, they will have your perfect life? Or are you genuinely saying, scrap that, all of that, let's strip it all back, and you don't need any of that, and maybe you can just be happy? That won't make money. If we are looking at other things that would promote actual health and wellness, not all those things are going to make you money.
Yeah, 100%. I also think it's not just online, it's actually in print, and it's been around for 150 years.
It's just easier now.
Yeah, and
online.
If you think
it's just
about,
quicker.
Yeah, it is. But women's health magazines have never been about health. They've been about a dieting culture, and that's not authentic. 'Cause it's not actually about health at all. And if you look at where these came from the temperance movement, which is actually based in racism, then all of that was to control women. So we didn't get the same rights as men. So none of it's really authentic then. It's a way of controlling people, or as you said, getting them to purchase something or to feel bad enough that they go off and spend their money in a certain way.
Of course, and if you're spending your money or you're preoccupied with looking a certain way or changing your body or just constantly dieting, you're kind of too busy to think about what else is going on in the world around you. So it does all stem from the patriarchy.
No, you're not fighting for equal pay. You're not fighting for equal rights for all types of people.
No, because you're focusing on
you're focusing on what you look like, and that's what we've done for hundreds of years. Well, men have created that industry. Sorry, we're very feminist.
No, that's good. No, it's good. But what I want to just pick up on is that so your comment right at the start as well about the loneliness piece and where we're at right now with lockdown, and then about buying into the fact that it's making you feel bad. Also, the intention is to hate yourself, hate your body, hate your life, want to look elsewhere. And it was actually when I was listening to one of your Instagram lives, Toral, when I was doing my research, and you mentioned it was you and Amy talking about the Office of National Statistics. I went and did a little bit of research. And at the end of March, there was in the UK, there was the biggest decline I've ever seen in life satisfaction, feelings of worthwhile, happiness, and a massive increase in anxiety. So if we think of where we were before COVID, and then suddenly, not only that, we've seen the biggest drop. I mean, I didn't get this by gender or a breakdown. I think it's just purely based on the actual high-level well-being survey. But this is the biggest drop they've ever seen in terms of, the biggest drop in those levels and the biggest increase in anxiety. So I'm just thinking in the last 7 months, 8 months, how has this also probably had an impact potentially on, people's sense of, when we're talking about the intention of making people feel shit and your feelings of worthwhile and your feelings of happiness and your feelings of anxiety are going up, then actually there's probably even a more longer term, there's going to be much more longer term effects just in general with that added piece as well.
I think just kind of harking back to what Ban said about authenticity, I think as a healthcare professional, whether you're a doctor or someone, a scientist, or even a personal trainer or whatever, you have a code of ethics and a code of what I think you're out there to do. And then when people start really looking to promote themselves and what they're selling, and ultimately we know that all these sponsored posts and things are all about making you feel bad, so you buy whatever it is. Then is it even wellness? Then is it not just a sales technique? And I think we've had so much more time to consume, TV, online content, internet, social media in the last 7-8 months. I'm sure that has an impact on our feelings about ourselves, of satisfaction in life and well-being. If you were to look at the Scandinavian countries, where they have a slightly more outdoorsy, sort of different type of lifestyle, it is interesting that there is a huge difference. So we could probably learn from that.
I was going to say the same thing. It's funny how there's so many memes around about people having another order delivered to their house during COVID, during lockdown and things, and it's the same kind of thing of, oh, I don't know what to do with my life. Let me buy this product because this is going to make me happy. This is going to fill a temporary void. Next thing you know, you don't even know what's arrived at the door.
Yeah.
But there's that kind of thing of what can I buy next? What can I do next? And did the fitness industry did my industry kind of go, wow, this is a great opportunity for me to launch my at-home workout. This is a great opportunity for me to launch a whole new business. Yes, some people did, and it's really, really probably benefited some people who, at the first couple of weeks of lockdown, they were probably thinking, oh, the one thing that I had to help me with my mental health was movement. The gym's now closed. What can I do? It has probably helped a lot of people, but there's also the other side of the extreme where there were others out there probably thinking, actually, I feel really, really shit. I don't need to see this influencer doing the 5th workout of the day.
Yeah.
I'm really fucking exhausted, and this person's doing like their 5th workout. Like, how many workouts can you do in a day? So there's that other side of it as well.
Well, there was a lot of posts around
the live,
saying,
the jokes, the Instagram lives. How many lives?
Saying, if you don't come out of a lockdown with a six-pack.
Seriously, guys, we just want to live. Like some people, the goal for a lot of people is just getting through this with their families still alive, with their families around them, and then there's the Fitspo's time to shred. Shred time, guys.
Is that also healthy? Because it's another form of control. So from a positive psychology, having that extreme control when the world is out of control, is that nothing? It's like anorexia, orthorexia.
No, it's
another
totally
form
that.
of control. Yeah. So I don't know if that was healthy. Admittedly, I'm not one of the people that ended up with a 6-pack. I ended up with a cake belly, but that's fine. In the full authenticity of it all, with the baking. But essentially, all of this stuff is about making us feel less worthwhile and less worthy. So when we're authentic, it's about fully appreciating who we are, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of us as ourselves. And actually, if you do you'll have lots to say about this. When we can accept ourselves fully as who we are, that's when life starts to become more interesting and better.
100%. And if anyone's got any comments about how they found what Ban and Toral have just been talking about around social media and lockdown and wellness, and kind of, were you impacted by any of that, or did you find certain things helpful or useful? Were you one of those people that were buying stuff that was, you felt actually might help or it hasn't? So just put anything into the chat, that'd be great. But I think the trouble is, and I say this from personal experience, to get to that point of feeling that authenticity and appreciating the good, bad, and ugly, you have to really go there, right? Because you have to be comfortable to do that. And I know, having spoken to both of you separately and together, that's a conversation around how you go through that experience, and it's tough and it's shit and it's hard work, and it's always a moving feast, right? Because life is always difficult and complex, so there's always stuff you can be working at, because being authentic is not a static state, right? I guess it was you shift and change, or the life around you shifts and change. You adapt and evolve to that. But to also appreciate the good, bad, and ugly, it's getting right. These are my faults. They're there. this is my body and this is where I'm at with it and this is how I feel and I'm happy with that, or I've got a sense of, for me it's always been about just being at peace almost with that, just being like, this is, you know, sometimes I'll be in the past and I'll be doing loads of stuff, I'll be training for a marathon, and like you were saying, just the last 6 months I've tried every online cake delivery I could get my hands on. I'm like trying different, you know, that's just part of just being where we are at life, I think, but it's just knowing you're comfortable with that, and that takes, I think for a lot of people that takes a lot of bravery as well. I mean, not saying I'm brave in that sense, but just for people to actually say, oh, it feels really hard for them to do that.
Well, you have to get uncomfortable with being, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable to really get to that point, to really delve into it. And I think authenticity is very linked to integrity. And I think it's something you brought up earlier about your values and morals. But I mean, integrity is not about values and morals in that way, but it's really about being who you said you were going to be and being your promised word of what you said you were going to do. And authenticity links back to that. So it doesn't matter if you change your mind about what it is you're going to do, as long as you're straightforward about it, honest about it. But doing that work, it's not easy. Like I had to have breast cancer at 29 to do the work. And it was a deeply, deeply uncomfortable, horrible place to be, especially pre-social media, where I didn't know where to look for support or who to talk to or anyone else I knew. Yet I suddenly lost a breast, and then I had to like just theoretically kind of be into normal. But in that meantime of me being in hospital and having surgery and treatment, everyone else seemed to have suddenly bought a house, got married and been promoted to like a dream job. And I was a bit like, oh, and I'm like the person here having cancer. So, you know, it's really about looking at those things. I could have sat there and wallowed, and don't get me wrong, I have wallowed, but I did also then take that opportunity to be like, right, this has happened, it's shaken me up. Do I want my life to be like this? And I think most of us are so comfortable with just where we're at, and even if there's lots of discomfort there, we don't want to acknowledge it. We hide it by drinking, drugs, exercising, controlling our food, shopping, you know, all of these things, which kind of will, and a part of the wellness industry is to make people feel bad to then buy this stuff. Yeah. And buy these courses and buy these books and buy whatever it is.
So we've got a comment from somebody who's saying during lockdown they definitely upped their fitness and home workouts. They got mildly obsessed with them, and they were fit, but when they were restricted to the 1 hour outside, they were in France. But now the past nearly 3 months, been enjoying life more, not working out, enjoying not being obsessed with getting multiple workouts in.
I heard from a lot of people would actually say that I've actually, first couple of weeks, great, awesome. Now my knees really hurt. That was something that wasn't, and it's not one person, I wouldn't bring it up, it was just one person who said that. Yeah. There were several people who were like, I can't do any more high impact stuff. My knees are fucked. Like, this was actually happening. Yeah. And it's kind of normal, like you to have nothing else to do at home. Of course, I'm sure lots of people thought, oh great, these are all free workouts, I get to move. But then they also need to be structured and programmed, and you also need to kind of
have your assessment and or just park you.
Well, yeah. You also need to realise that you probably don't want to be doing this constantly, several times a day, and it's going to get boring, let alone once a day.
And also with HIIT exercise, and I talk about this a lot, but people don't realise high impact is basically leading to high cortisol in your body, and if you're already stressed or anxious, this is not the right type of exercise for you to be doing.
Especially during a high stressful,
where you're hypervigilant.
Yeah, you're literally like, oh my God, the world is imploding. Why, you know, and my mum started talking about HIIT the other day. She did this HIIT workout. She was all about it, and I was like, no,
Mum.
No.
I mean, I teach it, and I still talk about it.
Yeah. And there is a time and a place for it. You know?
Somebody else has commented as well to say they found themselves being more affected by the productivity porn I was seeing in the last few months of social media at the start of lockdown. So motivation really took a hit because they were comparing themselves to what they were seeing in a way I'd never had in the past. I managed to bring myself out recently, but it's took its toll.
Well, have you not foam rolled, activated, done a shopping list, written a blog post, uploaded 5 YouTube views by 7 a.m.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
what?
Not even
what? 7 a.m.
You know, literally
hi guys.
Cleaned out your whole house, Marie Kondo'd it, you know, like.
Yeah, there is a massive thing, and that actually affects so many more people. So that would affect me.
Yeah.
even the people who feel like they've got their shit together can see something like that, and I'm like, oh, just fuck off, mate. Like, mute, like, go away.
Yeah.
But of course, it's going to affect people.
Yeah.
That affects. I think that personally affects more people than maybe it's my age group. I think that affects more people than maybe those who are slightly younger, who are all into the just the exercise. The exercise. I think the productivity guilt is a massive thing. I know my friends who also have a social media following. They are affected by that, seeing other influencers. You're thinking, because no one knows how much money anyone makes as well.
No.
So it's like, oh, why is this person doing so much?
And even as a business, as an entrepreneur, there's
Isn't it?
people saying, oh, I've done this and this in lockdown, I've done this. And we were doing a lot, but believe me, a lot of that was pro bono, because we were giving back to our clients, we were giving work to the NHS, we were supporting charities as well, doing talks. And so we were doing actually a lot, as in supporting our clients in the industries that we were part of. And we weren't getting paid for lots of that as well. And, and then there was people saying, oh, I've created this new product, I've done this, I've done that. And it's like, what?
Yeah, and just being authentic. I get asked to do so many free talks all the time, or pay for them. And I'm like, listen, you're not just paying for my time, you're paying for my 15 years in the industry, plus all the other years I've been studying, and I'm ongoingly studying. And, especially when it comes to talking about inequalities in health and poor outcomes, particularly in ethnic minorities.
Will you be on our diversity panel?
Will I be on our diversity panel? Oh no, not unless you pay me. Like, will you talk about the health outcomes? Not unless you pay me. And it's been really interesting. So you're complaining, you realise you're not doing it, you don't want to pay me for the work I'm doing, and the fact is you don't know anything about this particular topic.
But you're the brown girl.
Yeah, but I'm the brown girl, so I need to educate. That's my job, is to just stay up all night and write these.
Educate the white people.
Educate the white people, yeah. And the black people and the brown people, because everyone needs educating. It's not just that, but then you're going to make money from it. No.
So this brings us to, you mentioned it earlier on, about racism and wellness and authenticity. And I actually only found out about the term as I was doing some research about shadow banning.
Yeah.
And so that's a term which is used when people's content is blocked and not blocked, it's restricted, and there's no transparency around that, and that person is likely not even to know. So basically people are putting content out there and it's not being shared. And then I found out that, so I was reading around some of the news headlines. So Facebook, who obviously owns Instagram, they've had numerous civil suits against them for this particular reason, especially with regards to racism. TikTok was found that they'd been blocking hashtags for BLM and George Floyd as well. And Instagram CEO actually in June made a statement which was kind of almost quite wishy-washy around, oh yeah, we need to look into our systemic bias with regards to algorithms. So we spoke, I know when we've chatted offline before this talk, and we were talking about algorithms and content being produced and who actually gets those voices and who gets that platform to talk about being, wellness, but from an authentic and a diverse platform as well that's inclusive. So there isn't, I don't know if I'm really asking a question. I just made a statement there about shadow banning, but I just throw that in and just...
We both have a lot to say.
I know you will, I know you will.
I mean, there was a time when I was getting a message from Instagram. This is the part that people don't actually know. You probably know, because probably the same happened to you. But there was a time where I would get a message from Instagram probably once every 2 weeks saying, your account you've gone against community guidelines, your account's been restricted, it's very nearly going to be deleted. This is your warning. It'll say, and then later on I'd find out what post it was. But the content, I mean, you know my content. I'm not posting anything that you would think is going to be against the community guidelines. It's not anything.
Maybe those cookies from the other night. I don't know.
Quite, so that's awful. But this was happening every week, every so often, and it would be anything on. I know for a fact when I post something about racism, about privilege, it's not a coincidence that the views on the story goes down. There is not a coincidence, because it doesn't make sense. It's not even like I've posted it. It's not a coincidence that that stuff just gets, it just bombs, like just nothing happens with it.
And not just that post, then the next few after that. And I've been talking so much about racism and systemic racism and microaggressions in health and wellness, and also talking about the health inequalities that impact our health of racially minoritized people, ethnically minoritized people. And it's then my next week or two of content.
Yeah, I mean, I have been shadow banned on Instagram for about 9 months before. I don't know what's going on with it now, because I don't
At the
do it,
moment, I don't
but
know.
I have been for an extended period. And you don't get any messages, you don't get any response, you don't get any help. You can just be messaging all the time, and it will come back to you when they want it to come back to you. And I think that was a massive thing for me in my, this is me being truly authentic, kind of realizing that actually, whatever I do, I can put out that message, and there is absolutely no point in just playing the game, if that makes sense, or just posting for the sake of it. Because for me, it was just like, okay, well, I'm never gonna really be a social media influencer. I'm never going to, I don't want to be. I know in my personality, it doesn't work for me because I can't be online all the time. And it just kind of helped me realize that, actually this isn't, when you think that is what you want, when people watch these things and they see these holidays, they see these hotels, they see the free gifts, they think that that's the ultimate goal. What they don't see is everything that comes behind the scenes, and that's your complete freedom, which I think ties in with authenticity. Can you be truly authentic if if someone is demanding something from you? Someone demands your post, someone demands your time, someone demands that advert must come up at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
What was I talking about? Where did that go?
No,
Does that make sense?
No, it
Perfect,
makes sense.
absolutely.
Yeah,
And I think we need to think about the kind of scientific and the engineering behind it. Is somebody creates an algorithm.
Someone
It's not
creates an
just
algorithm,
comes-
and someone also decides when your stuff is not going to be
Yeah.
shown up. So you have no control over it.
No.
So the thing is, most algorithms are created by white men. So if you even want to talk about anything to do with menstruation, which happens to half the world, or menopause, again, a lot of that stuff goes missing.
Yeah.
So, but then how are we supposed to educate people then? So we have to remember that. So there's a person called Dr. Pragya Agarwal who's written a brilliant book called Sway about unconscious bias. And we need to start seeing where we have our unconscious bias and where other people have, and start breaking it down. Like on Instagram, it's so bad. Like there was a whole campaign with Naomi, who's a curvy black model, who was shadow banned because she had a really beautiful picture of her kind of covering her breasts. But yet there are loads of white wellness influencers who are like mostly naked, and yet they don't ban that stuff.
No.
So bigger bodies are also marginalized. You know, women of color are marginalized. People talk about racism, people talk about inequality, talk about privilege. So then the world is not fair. It's not equitable.
No.
Yeah, you're more likely to get banned on a post where you call someone out for something they said that was racist to you, or just yeah. Then that person will be for the comment they made.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with Instagram.
Yeah. And you're right, it's just, it is someone else like almost deciding for you. And that means that we make this amazing content trying to educate people on whatever it might be, body positivity or loving your body, or for me, it's really about health and like what is actually going on in our health system. And I'm really passionate about NHS, but like, really there's systemic racism within the NHS too, and all our kind of health boundaries as well. So then, if I'm being shadow banned for it, this is problematic, because we need to break these things down if we want the world to have equity and, equality for all.
But then if that exact post that you've shared is reshared by a white thin woman,
Yeah.
Which it did when I did the race.
it will go viral.
Yeah.
So it's got absolutely nothing to do with the quality of the content.
Yeah.
It does have to do with who is deciding to share that content and spread that content.
And I did a whole IG live with my friend Janelle about the white supremacy and racism in health and wellness, and there were lots of very slim white women doing yoga who kept sharing it, and it did go viral. And I was a bit like, okay,
for your service.
Great, but then what about all the other stuff that I'm
Yeah.
trying to educate, how we can work, actually make the world a better place?
Because, like you said before, about everyone needs to be educated in that sense, but how do you get your message out there if it's to educate everybody? And if we think about the fact that this industry is worth so much, who has the money to spend? You know, when we're talking about privilege, who are the people that have access to the funds to be able to spend X amount on whatever that is, or whether it's a program, whether it's even going to an exercise class, or, you know, buying products, or, you know, it's about that privilege part of it as well, in terms of who gets access.
Yeah, absolutely. Because so if we look at the current situation, we're in COVID, and one of the conversations, particularly here and in the US, is about, you know, the impact of obesity and our issues with metabolic health. Yet the government keeps going on about exercise, and it has this interesting app which it's created, which is all about calorie control and stuff. But it hasn't addressed any of the socioeconomic issues that have impacted health inequality, which is why we're in this state. They haven't addressed the fact that it's really easy to buy cheap, nutrient-poor food, like 12 packs of crisps for £2. Yet, you know, grapes and fruit is really expensive. Fruit and vegetables are expensive. So they haven't addressed that there's food desert. They haven't addressed that people aren't being taught to cook. They haven't addressed any of this stuff. And like, they're selling these shakes and these soups and stuff. Yeah, well, what is wellness when people actually can eat with their family and like know what to eat and all of that? And so for me, there's this ongoing frustration then, because it's just then being promoted, the same stuff that gets promoted by these people. Yeah.
And that's how you get weight stigma, when the government is backing a campaign saying, you know, obesity, save the NHS. And that starts a whole conversation around people thinking, oh, yeah, that's why I hate fat people.
And actually, the weight stigma itself is actually much more harmful to your health if you look at Linda Bacon's work than the actual weight itself, because it gives you so much stress, and the cortisol and all the inflammatory and stuff, it cascades in your body than the actual weight. So we've slightly got confused when you've got a government that's making moral issues between like being fat is bad. And even if you look at Disney movies, sorry, I'm really obsessed with this, all the baddies are always different colors and they're bigger people.
Yeah.
Like all the baddies, and you know, and then the women are supposed to be slim and beautiful, and then they get rescued by this prince. And now, obviously, luckily,
I rescue myself, though.
yeah, exactly. Well, the newer ones, you know, in the newer Aladdin, luckily she rescues him in the end, which is great, you know. And they've actually used a cast that's international and actually, you know, more Middle Eastern or whatever, Indian or whatever. But like, we've kind of gone off topic a bit.
Yeah,
but like,
it's okay.
Where do we, again, it's authenticity again, cultural appropriation. Where do we have, you know, weight stigma? All of these things, it all fits in and overlaps together. So unless we have people who are really being authentic and talking about it, because the people who are talking about wellness often are far really privileged. They've become influencers straight after university or whatever because they can afford to. And they don't have to necessarily think about where their next meal is coming from. They can live with mummy and daddy and all of that. So I'm not saying I didn't have that. You know, I know what privilege I have. But we also have to remember that too. Some people who want to eat well, they might not struggle and might have to eat processed ready meals because they're working 2 jobs just to pay their rent.
Yeah.
And we're not looking at that.
I know, and then you'll have your influencer who says, there's always a way. When really there is.
Well, that was what I was seeing.
You're like them.
I was seeing a lot of that on Instagram.
There's always
the
a
whole
way.
government healthy eating
There's always a
campaign.
way.
I mean, it was just.
And it still reeks, the answers are still reaping privilege.
Yeah.
Yeah, food, people who access food banks, the fact, you know, there is so much poverty. And like you're saying, Toral, people aren't educated to cook, but some people don't even have the, you know, electricity to have a stove, to have, you know,
the knowledge,
the utensils to actually do that.
There's lots of nonsense around saying things like, oh, you can just get a big bag of salad, and you can get by. It's like, mate, oh my God, like, your comment is awful because that's it. You've just displayed your privilege with that comment of, oh, you can just make a soup. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
because I've got a blender and I've got all this stuff.
And a NutriBullet, I'll just go whip one up.
But also when you bring it up, like there's a person who talks about mental health on social media, and he basically said that racism was a mental health issue, and I'm like, no, it's not. There's systemic. And I brought out, he just didn't like it, and I was like,
who is this person?
I'll tell you later.
Yes, please do. I want to know.
Yeah, it was a real problem, and actually we have to then understand what are the systemic issues that lead to lack of authenticity and people selling out. You know, that's essentially what it is. People are selling stuff because they want to make money for whatever reason, which is fine. We all need money, don't get me wrong. But is it the right way of doing it? Is it, also, what are they going to do when they're like, I'm over 40, so I can say this, when they're 35 and they just look not that great because they've done all this stuff.
Well, it goes back to your original point about what I wrote that down, which was what is the intention? You know, what is the intention behind that? And I think Tasman's thinks it's great. It's such an important topic. Highlights how more work is needed to do to diversify the wellness industry and to make sure it's truly authentic and representative of all. I found when I was doing a bit of research again for this talk, I came across Chrissy King, who I'd not come across before, and I read some of her articles, and one of them was really interesting she did for Shape, which was to do the work in the wellness industry, why wellness pros need to be a part of the conversation about racism. So, go.
I mean, nothing frustrates me more than having, you know, someone say something like, oh, stop making this so political, or stop making this so,
oh my God.
this isn't about this, because it really is. It's if the person you're following, wellness, is posting their kale smoothie and their mountain climbers in their bedroom and their burpees, they're missing something. Like, that is not authenticity, and that's not wellness. Wellness is so much more than a green
World Health
smoothie,
Organization.
kale and moving your body and abs. It's so much more. You cannot talk about wellness without bringing up racism, without bringing up everything we've just said, access to disabilities, poverty. That's not wellness. The patriarchy, and that's what we need to that's what influencers need to understand, and that's what the studios need to understand, and that's what your boss needs to understand, and the people who are engaging with content need to get that too, because it's a vicious cycle. If you're constantly liking that person is going to continue feeding into that.
And sorry, I'm just going to jump in quickly because there's a question or comment that did come up, which I think is really important. Somebody's put, it's important to remember the positives of influencers, that some of the content is formative, motivational, it's free. But I think you have to do the research to find the positive influencers, and ultimately it's the viewer's choice as well. But I think your point around, if you're just seeing it and you're scrolling, like
that's my point.
Who spends time researching,
that's
really?
why
They don't.
Yeah.
Also, the more you like a certain type of person, the way the algorithm is set up is the more you show. So and this is why there's a whole thing like diversifying your feed. So when I go to my Discover page now, I see people of all different colours, all different shapes, all different nationalities doing all sorts of different things. Whereas most people will see the same white, skinny, and I'm not being mean about this, but it's just the same types of people doing the same types of things. So this is wherein the algorithm is based on. So even if someone wanted, they have to do more than research because it's trying to push them this one thing anyway. So
it's like when you search for something online now, isn't it? If you'll do a search if you want to buy, I don't know, what have I bought recently? A new bike. So I was like Googling, obviously, bikes, looking at different brands, and then before you know it, you start to see those
I do agree with the
ads.
comment, though.
Yeah.
It is ultimately the consumer's decision.
Some people don't really care. They just don't care. They don't think about it enough, and then they complain.
And that's their decision.
Yeah.
But I think that's also their decision. You have every right to use Instagram the way you want to use it. I have friends who my best friends will say, you know what, mate? I just want to see pretty pictures. Fair enough. I might use it as a different kind of tool. They might want to do that.
Do you think as well, though, and this is something I've really learnt to work on myself, especially probably in the last year, 18 months, is about doing that critical thinking piece.
Yeah.
So that piece about what you reshare, what you repost, or you look at something. And I've called out my own bullshit when I've actually reposted, and then I thought, oh, actually, there was more to that story, and I've corrected it, or I've gone back and said I didn't know that. And that's a lot of doing the whole piece around the anti-racist work as well, but everything else, anything where you sort of, there was the black and white photo, which was about, so I did that, and then I'd heard from Paula Bell and just her explanation, and I was like, oh, and I went back and went, this is wrong, this is why. And actually through our other, and this actually linked back to my company, because we actually did a post around that for my not-for-profit to say, actually people didn't realise this is what you were sharing, this is the story behind it. So we actually put out a post about that, But then I just saw how that went viral with so many of my friends reposting it and not getting the story behind it.
But so many people did that, and I said that to a few people, and they got really annoyed with it. Same with the black square, and then they kept posting. I was like, the whole reason is to have a blackout so we can actually amplify the people that are talking about racism and diversity and all these things. The same with this, highlighting that genocide in women in Turkey is horrific, and it's increasing. I think is it 200% or something.
Yeah.
So, and this, people don't realise that this affects us in all sorts of ways. Whatever's affecting women in one country is going to affect us somewhere. And I think when women say, I don't want to get political, I don't want to talk about race, I don't want to talk about environment, I just want to look at pictures of your food or whatever, I'm just like, but you have to, because it all influences each other. And if you're not doing that work...
They don't have to. I disagree.
Well, I think if you're going to then go on and have a discussion about it, then if you're not informed...
They're not, but that's, of course, obviously, if they can have a discussion
that's what I mean. And then if they come coming back to me to have a discussion,
but
that's what
I think it's... I know what I want to do in my life. I know what I want to be informed about. I know how I use my Instagram, and I'm pretty happy with the way I use Instagram. But also, I know people who are pretty clued up with the world who don't use Instagram in that way, and they don't want to use it in that way, and I think that's fine too.
Yeah.
Not if you're responding to people and then commenting.
No, of course not. I never said that.
And that's what the point I'm trying to make.
So if we think about then that whole, so the influencers who are either paid to put those brands out there or the brands themselves, and this was a question right at the start, but it kind of links a full 360 into where we were going to go to kind of take this conversation anyway, is are there any mainstream publication or brands that are in media that you actually think are really championing authenticity? Are there any?
This is such a great question.
Yeah.
Actually a really great question, and something I've never really thought about. And my immediate answer is probably no, because I can't think of an answer. But maybe I just need to, like, who do I really love? I don't know.
And I think for me, I agree, I would say no, but people are starting to see their issues. I've been working with a hair brand about on a cancer campaign, and actually we had a really wonderful discussion. And they said, actually, Toral, we did this thing which was transgender, and we did this thing with different body types, and we did, it's just that I hadn't seen it for whatever reason. And actually it was really, so just by asking those questions.
Yeah, it's a great question
to ask yourself, and also if you are working with brands, to ask them, what else are they doing? What else is happening? And I think, for me, I feel like influencers should ask that question. So, for example, with this whole clothing industry thing, I don't buy fast fashion, but I want to know whether people are being paid. So we know that with Philip Green and Topshop and all stuff, all the garment workers, who are mostly women and children and people like that in Bangladesh and other countries, haven't been paid for this whole lockdown situation where clothes have been made, but they haven't been necessarily sold. So all of this fits in with this, about being more informed about what you buy. Like, our money is how we vote. So I don't agree, actually, with you say, that they shouldn't look into it more, because I think if you really care about the world and your life...
But you're assuming they care about the world.
No, I'm assuming that. Maybe I need...
But they might not.
I just try not to be friends.
You've got a very good... Yeah, you've got a very good...
You're going to take Ben out there with that.
No, but what I get that, and that's a privilege too, but like, if you're going to say you're going to care, then you need to look into it. Don't just say, oh, I care, but then you don't care.
But can you look into it without having an Instagram account?
Yeah, you can just go and actually look at it. You don't need to have Instagram. I'm not talking about Instagram. I'm talking about just generally.
But I know you sent me, actually, there was a post, and I can't remember the person that did it now. It was Instagram TV, but it was about the Gymshark post.
No, it's Ben.
Was it Ben who sent it? Oh, okay. So,
was it me?
No, I brought it up.
And
then you sent it.
It's a difficult one with brands, because, like, now that...
So just for people so they know, it was Gymshark did a post. You explain. Go on.
I haven't seen the video,
So
but recently Gymshark has obviously been diversifying their feed. They've I don't know who is managing their comments at the moment, but it's quite funny and it's really good. I've never been a massive Gymshark fan. I'll just be honest, never have. But looking at their feed, you can ask yourself, am I just going to be angry at them for changing and selling it, and now they're changing their feed, or am I going to be like, oh, they took the feedback and they're doing something about it? I think it's quite a difficult one, because if they don't do anything, we're angry. If they do something, which they have done, and like their followers are going mental, they're hating it, and I'm like, yes, like where
with the most
it's the intention though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Going back to your thing, it's the intention.
is the intention. I do think though, I think there is enough people to be mad at it. There are people that, I mean, they're going to lose and gain probably the same amount of followers, so it's fine.
I mean, they were one of the first brands, fitness brands, to really use micro-influencers and user-generated content. So it's an interesting business model. But I mean, they've grown by so much. But if you look at, let's just say, Women's Health magazine, they suddenly started diversifying their feed. But how authentic is that?
No, that's
is there
not
any
authentic.
intention about it?
We
No,
don't-
it's
we
not.
don't need to
Like,
talk about
so,
them.
Yeah, I mean, like,
we don't need to talk about them. But like Gymshark, like it's a conversation I had with myself because I was like, you always hated Gymshark. Now they are doing something. Like, can you? I think that's the thing that I
watch
thought.
and wait.
Is it perfunctory, or is it going to
What happens
actually
next?
evolve
Will you
and
continue
go somewhere?
this?
Well, so many brands have put up performative posts after the death of George Floyd, and
God,
they're trying to change. But actually, it's not. They're not changed any of how their practices, how their staff are treated.
It's the same with influencers though, who posted the black square, and will continue doing things. I mean, this brings us on nicely to the body positivity movement.
Yeah.
But like, you can't post a black grid and then go back to, you know, manipulating your body into an unflattering pose when you're not a larger plus size woman.
Oh, this was me before and this was me afterwards.
Yeah.
Kind of like, it's just a change of...
That's the thing. That's the thing. You can't, because that is a movement for black people, fat black women, Jewish women, and if you're going to be doing that, take that post down. That's performative because you don't care. Because if you did care, you wouldn't be posting something which you know directly profits you and takes them away from the movement.
Yeah, I'm big. Yeah, I totally 100% agree with you. So, what do we do about?
So it's not just brands who do that.
about people.
It's influencers too.
And clearly there's even money. I mean, when I just was thinking then about those kind of what you look like and that kind of visible representation, that whole, you know, with all the money around editing photos and the apps that are all there to kind of change how you look and add in a filter, and, you know, and I've seen where actually, I think it was Clarkson did a whole thing where she actually just took like how she looked normally compared with when she worked on loads of different filters, makeup, and she didn't even look like the real person that she was.
Crazy. Like filters have gone from just smoothing skin and like better lighting to actually changing your face.
I've met influencers. I've never
Changing.
recognised them. I just
I'm
don't
so
know.
glad you two look how you do in real on screen.
I'm like, oh my God.
I don't even know how to do any of that, so I wish I did. But like, you know, I mean, this happens everywhere. Like you see, I've met influencers. I just think they have to almost tell me because they're very plain in real life, and I'm a bit like, oh. I don't recognise you. Like, you just don't look the same. I mean, this happens probably in dating apps too. I mean, like, all sorts of. Don't even get me started. But like this, you know, essentially you're catfishing, then, aren't you? And you're trying to sell a product.
But I always think these things are really sad, as opposed to getting angry with the influencers or even laughing. I find it really, really sad that we do live in a world where they are doing that.
I feel worried for their mental state, that they can't feel authentic. They cannot be all their.
But when you're getting more from a world by looking that way, of course they're going to do it.
So that's when
in
we
a
think
society where you're getting paid more, you're getting more brands, you're getting more followers, you're getting more influencers, you're getting everything more from based on the way you look. Can we blame them?
But then that's where women are never going to be equal. Then if we're always going to be about how we look, then it's patriarchy is always going to rule us. And then do you want to be part of that? I don't.
Well, that was the conversation we were having offline the other day with Prep when we were chatting about this, about, you know, if we're then looking at wellness from a perspective of, right, I need to get my eyebrows, I need to get my hair done, I want to get my lips done, I want to get this done, I need to look like this. There's always something else, right? But what ideal of authenticity is it you or is it what you think you should look like? And interestingly, someone's put on the topic of Gymshark, I think it's great they're diversing their feed and showing different people in an attempt to be more relatable, representative, but if you look at their clothing, the sizes are inclusive, so the message they're portraying doesn't look to fully align with their practices, which is quite
It just looks enough. if that makes
Just
sense.
enough
It's
so that
just
they're not in trouble.
enough.
Yeah, just
It's
A little,
just enough.
a little sprinkle.
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it's palatable enough.
And actually, if you look at just beauty magazines, health magazines,
Even the positive body positivity
Yeah,
is
yeah.
always like,
but it's also looking at westernized forms of beauty and not these beautiful African or Middle Eastern or Asian women who have a very different.
no, they have
types of
tiny
beauty.
waists. They still have tiny waists.
No, but
and-
from their facial features and
Yeah.
stuff, and like magazines and how dark people are. If you look at all these magazines, there's massive colorism. Whereas if you're kind of a maybe biracial or a lighter skinned dark person, you'll get more than if you're a dark skinned person. So all of these things, you know, not just in health and wellness and beauty, everywhere.
And I think that's just also reminded me of what was it I'm looking for? One account that I've followed for quite a while is Models of Diversity. And I'm just thinking about when we look at what we see out there in terms of disability as well. You know, people, there isn't a cross-representation around disability. What if when we talking about which Instagram is a visible platform, and that's what it's about, the posting, the photos, whatever. That was obviously what originally it was created for, until now it's become this way of communicating and producing content and educating, but actually there isn't a representation there. You have to really look for that.
Yeah, and I think, again, that's up to you whether you want to look at it. But someone asked me about this when Amy and I were doing a talk about the government obesity strategy. That's not, again, the government themselves are not being inclusive in that way. So what if they're telling us to move more, but what about having things so they're more inclusive, not just for people who've got physical, like disabilities with their arms or legs or they can't move or whatever, but what about, but also things like being deaf or blind.
Yeah.
You know, there's a girl who's a fitness influencer who actually I know personally, who is deaf. And like, you know, no one would ever do anything. And I'd always be the person who would turn around and be like, repeat it slowly so she could lip read my lips. And I just thought, these people don't even give a monkeys.
No, they don't.
Oh.
They wouldn't even think about it. It wouldn't even cross their minds.
Yeah.
So we are actually at the last 5 minutes. Can you believe it? We could probably sit here and talk forever.
We had
So what I want to ask you for the very last question is, what would you say then if there are influencers, wellness individuals, professionals, whatever capacity people are listening, what's the one small thing they can start off by doing differently, do you think?
I think to the people at home looking online, I think it doesn't really matter what following you have, doesn't matter the size of your following, you can have a conversation about this anywhere. You do not need to have a certain amount of followers. You can have a conversation at brunch, at breakfast, at dinner. You can bring it up to your friends. You can talk about the issues going on in the world. If you are an influencer, I would genuinely, and you're like working with a brand, a partnership, you need to speak up. Like, you have to speak up. You cannot post a black square and then not continue and speak up. And you need to speak up when it might cost you a check. Like, you need to speak up when it's going to cost you a partnership, it's going to cost you followers. You need to speak up when, you know, you might take a real dip, not just share something on your story. That's not speaking up. It kind of almost needs to affect you in some way in order for the power play, for the structure to work.
But that's then taking a stand and actually kind of going back to your first comment, which is about intention.
Yeah.
So I would say, look at your intention. What do you really want to do?
If
what
you
legacy
genuinely
do you
care.
really want to leave behind as well? Because if you're just a pretty looking person, no one's going to remember you in 50 years' time. No one's going to remember you in 10 years' time. So what intention is it? Where do you want to leave things? And what work have you done? Because if you're saying you're supporting these things, but you're not letting it, as you said, willingly affect the comfort of your own life, then are you really being a stand? If you've got the privilege of having a platform where people listen to you, use it well.
And it just means it's really simple things like asking the person that you're partnering with, who else is doing this?
Yeah.
If you're going on a trip, if they're giving you a free holiday, who else is invited?
Are they getting paid? Because there are loads of instances where black and brown people have not been paid and white people have. So if you look at the whole Bon Appetit food magazine, they had a massive scandal where all the top people wanted to be binned because they essentially were asking black and brown people to make content for free, and the white people. And I think there's an Instagram account that looks at, you know, influence or something.
Prada, I think, what's it called?
I don't-
Diet Prada.
I know there's another
They
one
call
actually.
out. They
which I
call
actually
out
use.
a lot of companies. It's actually really great.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah, there's so many instances where I know I've been invited on and the white person's been paid and I haven't. And I'm like, but I'm also more educated on this subject.
That is absolutely shocking. But yeah, so
Be a stand.
where can people follow you and to get this amazing, knowledgeable 15 years and 8 years of content of just like, where can people find you online? Because I know that you are exceptional at what you do.
I'm at the Urban Kitchen on Instagram. I have a Facebook page, the Urban Kitchen, and also I'm at What the Health events, where we have lots of these types of conversation about what is health and wellness all the time. My co-founder Ava Abraham, so come and find me there.
I'm Ban Hass on everything.
Van Hass on everything.
Everything you can imagine.
Whole world.
And I'm Ruth Cooper-Dickson and also Champs Consult. And thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, ladies. It's been an absolute pleasure. I knew it'd go super fast and there's so much we could talk about this. So I do appreciate your time and contribution and being here tonight in person. And thank you for everybody who's watching at home and all the questions and comments. I think we got through most of them. There's a couple I missed. But loads of great comments about they've really enjoyed it. It's been a great convo, brilliant topic, interesting perspectives, brilliant talk. So thank you. Always love that people are listening in and hopefully you've learned a little bit to take away and help you on your journey as well. And thank you to Fora for having us as part of your Restore Week. And I will see you again next month for a Thrive series. Bye.